Hi, guys. Welcome to the End Times Guy podcast. My name is Lee. Great to have you along with me today. It's blue skies in Northern Oregon. I'm making my way up to Alberta today. Load of roof shingles. They're not one of my favorite loads because you can't really go nuts with the straps. The more I tighten them down, the more it bends those roof shingles. And you don't want the customer getting roof shingles that have little fissures in them. That's where the roof leaks. So you can't tighten them down too hard. I use what's called edge protectors, little plastic corners to keep it safe. But even with that, you just don't want to go too nutso on the old breaker bar. That's what I use to tighten the straps with. I'm thankful today for a beautiful day's drive. Everything went really well unloading this morning. I was in a place called Troutdale, Oregon this morning. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, right down along the water. I passed a little village of houseboat. Well, I guess you would call them floating homes, or I know there's a proper name for it. They're a literal timber structure that would look like a normal small house on land, but they're built on floats. It's not a houseboat, but they're little houses that float on the water. And I know there's some of those on Granville Island in Vancouver as well. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can escape property tax by building like that. I don't think you have to pay a land tax when you're floating on the water. You would have to pay a mooring fee to whoever owns the marina, though. And, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. But you know what? These days, a lot of people are finding different ways to live. I see tiny homes and things like that gaining in popularity. And I think it's practical and I think it's wise. The more burdened we are with unnecessary bills, the more we have to be slaves to the system. And the less we have the time and freedom to really sit back and take a deep breath and contemplate, who am I? What am I doing here? What am I living for? The really big questions that when we get that diagnosis or when the Lord returns, it's too late. The time to ask those questions is today. And the time to make change is today. And if we're living a life that is too stressful, too flat out, then it is time to make some changes. We need to have some peace. Jesus led the disciples away to places where there was peace and quiet and they could rest. He's the shepherd. He knows what's best for the sheep. And there were times where he said, guys, we got to get out of town and take a breather. Now, sometimes those plans were sabotaged. They would get to the other side of the lake and find a big mob waiting for them. And Jesus was a compassionate guy, man. He couldn't turn his back. He knew they were there because they had needs. They wanted something from him. And you know what? When someone comes and knocks at my door, it's a stranger. And I know they're at my door because they want something from me. Some of the most recent ones, our natural gas, they were sending people around asking us if we'd like to sign a form to lock our price in for 5 years. And I gave it some thought and said, no, thank you. If they're paying you to go around to get people to lock it in, then I'm pretty sure it's going to drop. And it did drop. I'm thankful I didn't sign that. They had discovered a large natural gas pocket in northern Canada, and it significantly reduced our cost. So those who signed are stuck with the prices, which weren't relatively high before, but my bill really dropped down. It's my smallest bill. It's smaller than internet, smaller than hydro. I'm still paying those bills until my daughter's old enough to take over the mortgage. I did give her the home, and I look forward to being free of those trappings. I don't want bills hanging over my head. I want to be free to wherever the Lord sends me, man. I'm on my way. And to live in a truck, I feel like a professional tourist. This job keeps me going pretty hard. I work on average 13 hours a day, 6 days a week, but it's to really get rid of any debt I have left over. Plus, at the same time, I'm donating whatever I can to Open Doors USA. And I'm so thrilled the Lord has put me in this position that I'm able to donate a substantial amount of money in that direction. I read an article 2 days ago that, where was it, in Laos or one of those, I believe they're Indonesian countries. Um, Christians are being absolutely brutalized by the Buddhists that live there. In their own home villages, those that convert to Christianity are being beaten. They're not allowed to bury their dead. They're despised. They're not allowed to be a part of the business in the community. It's just horrible the way they treat Christians there. And one Christian family had their vehicle destroyed, their house burnt, and basically had nothing. And when they complained, one of their children was beaten over the head with the wheel from the front of a motorcycle. And the others have experienced ongoing physical beatings. It's horrible what those poor people are enduring. And Open Doors USA, go to their website and check them out. Founded by Brother Andrew, who used to smuggle Bibles behind the Iron Curtain. And now this ministry is reaching the persecuted saints all around the world with things that they need. It's a wonderful ministry. And I read that this poor family, these brothers and sisters of ours who are being persecuted, are now being helped by Open Doors. And anyone who donates is playing a part in that help. I'm playing a part in that help that they so desperately need. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm really happy to be a part. And it is a blessing that God has set it up that I get to do that. Now, it wasn't always that way for me. God has recently opened the door where I'm actually able to do something. Prior to that, I never had the money. I was always stuck with my debt. And I think, honestly, it's when I started living for the things of God instead of living for the things of this world, that God said, okay, I can trust you now. Whereas if my heart belonged to the things of the world, God knew exactly what I would do with the extra money. I would have boats, campers, big expensive trucks, all kinds of nice stuff, and I would still have the same amount of no money whatsoever to donate to anyone else. God has changed my heart so that I don't want to collect things on earth. And as a result, it's the first time in my life where I've been able to bless others. And it is a blessing. It's totally wonderful. I'm so thankful that God has given me this opportunity. But anyways, I nattered on a bit there. What I'm really interested in talking about is what's being done in public schools today. And you know what? We need to make parents aware of what's happening to their children. Most parents send their kids off to school and they might talk around the dinner table for half an hour and that's it. There's very little communication in the average home. The kids go on to do their after school activities, their homework, their socializing, and all the rest of it. The family is so busy it has no time for each other, and they don't even know what their kids are doing. And unfortunately, this has led to 82% of Christians who go on post-secondary education to turn away from their faith. They decide they're no longer Christians. And their parents are left going, what happened? How did this happen? And I blame it entirely on the public school system. Now, many parents believe that, you know, it's just the way they see it is it's better to send your children into the real world. You know, they have church and they have their family and they have their Christian friends, but they also need to go into the real world to experience real life or they won't be ready. And on the surface, it sounds wise, but in reality, it's not. It's not the right thing to do. And we all need to be absolutely clear on that fact. School is not the real world. Anyone who's been to public school knows that it's not the real world. A public school, is an awful lot like a prison. You go in and you have no control, no autonomy. You're basically ordered around and told what you can do. You're told what you can believe. And there is a social structure there that you'd better fit into. You better find your place in it, or you're going to get mowed over. You need to find a clique, find a club, find a group, find a place to belong for protection. So some go off and be goth or emo or nerd or jock or whatever it may be, so they have their own little pigeonhole, just like the prison systems. Now, we all know very well that back in the 60s, the problems in school were talking and chewing gum. And now, just like prison, public schools have drug problems, they have rape problems, they have murder, violence, abortion, alcoholism, you name it, it's going on in the public schools. I had a friend who told me the same tired argument. Well, they've got to see the real world. Then I said, what's the real world? I asked him that. And he just gave me a blank look and shrugged. If you can't define what the real world is, then what are you talking about? He couldn't tell me. I understand. He's probably saying secular society is the real world, but my challenge is, what makes that real? Because Satan rules over it, that makes it real? That gives it credibility? I don't think so. He sent his 12-year-old daughter to public school. I homeschooled my then, I believe they were 8 and 10. They were in a Christian private school for 2 years. And I pulled them out of there because it was a little cleaner and a little wealthier than public school, but not much different. Very, very carnal. Maybe you have class prayers, but the kids were pretty much as carnal as the kids in the world. They were just dressed nicer and had wealthier parents. So I pulled my kids out of there. They went to homeschool. Now, my friend, his Christian daughter, gave up her faith within the first year of public school. She got into drugs, cutting, goth, you name it. She tried it, premarital sex, all the rest of it, and threw her life on the train tracks. She is now in her early 20s. She hasn't come back to God, but she is living with her boyfriend and is not as wild as she was for a while there. So my daughters, who are homeschooled, have never had that wild part in their lives. They've never had a boy crazy phase. We've never been at war or hostile towards each other. You see, in parenting, you reap what you sow, and I've always poured my best into their lives, and I've always put their needs ahead of my own, and I've always loved them no matter what. And at 16, I told them, this is your life now. You're in charge of it. If you want to go out drinking, I'm not going to stop you. If you want to have a boyfriend, that's your business. If you want to, party, if you want to, I don't care. It's your life. It's yours to wreck. It's yours to repair now. And they took their ownership of their lives and the responsibility that went with it. They realized, yes, I can go out and sleep around. I can drink if I want to. I can smoke dope if that's what I choose to do. I can get tattoos. I'm allowed to do all of those things. But because I've given them their lives, it's theirs to choose. They're going, okay, do I want to do that to my life? You see the difference between that and what they teach in the world? In the world, they've got parents at war with their young adults who naturally desire very much to be in charge of their own lives, but their parents are fighting them for control, and it's separating them and it's breaking up their relationships. Just because the world does things a certain way doesn't make it right. In fact, whatever the world is doing, just turn around and do the opposite. I guarantee you'll have a better outcome. So my friend sent his Christian girl into the public school. And, it may have been a decision that cost her her eternal soul. We won't know until the end of time. But think about that. 82% of young Christians going into college and university today are turning away from the Christian faith. Huh. What should we be doing about that? How is that even possible? How did they grow up with Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? How could they turn away from that? I don't understand. Well, I do. I'll say it. They never knew Jesus Christ personally. They were never born again. They were never filled with the Holy Spirit. They had a type of godliness, a form of godliness that denied the power. And this is the fruit of it. They're walking away from a set of ideas, a set of standards for their life. And they're looking at it now as adults and going, well, my parents were hypocrites and I don't want to be the same as them. So I'm just not going to go down this road. They've never seen the power of God. And I have. I've been blessed many times over with seeing the power of God. I could never turn away because I know for a fact I would be denying fact, not fantasy. And I lived that before my children. My children didn't see a hypocrite. They saw someone who believed with every fiber of his being, and they are really deeply rooted in their faith. Am I saying it's impossible for them to fall away? No, I'm not saying that. The end times are so dark that even the elect will be misled, if that is possible. But I really want you to understand that Christian children don't belong in public school. They just don't. We need to educate parents and make them aware, and I do whenever I talk online. I make it very clear that Christian children don't belong in public schools. And I'm met with a lot of resistance, a lot of anger. I think it's guilt. I think people know that a public school is no place for a child of God's. But because husband and wife are both working, they simply don't have another choice. And I'm suggesting, why don't 5 or 6 Christian families get together, have 1 or 2 moms teach the children while the others work, and share part of their earnings with the moms who are staying at home teaching the children. If we cooperate, our children don't need to be subjected to the brainwashing and the wickedness that goes on in schools. And to close, I just want to share some of the things happening in public schools right now. One grade 6 class had to write gay love letters. If you're a little boy, write a love letter to another little boy, an imaginary boy. And if you're a girl, write a love letter from you to an imaginary girl. And this is to cure them of homophobia and to familiarize them with the idea that they themselves might be gay. One 12-year-old girl shared with her mom that every day in school there is so much drama. Now, a 12-year-old would probably be in grade 6, maybe in grade 7. And this is what this grade 6 girl deals with. She goes in, and one girl asked another girl out, but the other girl wasn't a lesbian and was offended. And the first girl got offended that the other girl would be offended that she was a lesbian, and there was this big falling out. But then the other girl who was asked decided she was a lesbian, so now they're dating. In the same classroom, 3 children are transgendering, and there's just all kinds of this weird stuff happening, and there's news every day, and people's feelings are hurt every day. They're not in school learning reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore. They're getting their brains emptied out. They're all going to be very, very confused. Now, I was suspicious of public education 20 years ago. I looked at it and I honestly asked myself, why are they teaching in such a way as to make us hate learning? Think about it. all of the lessons are so boring and so tedious and so pointless, things you will never use in your life, that the only thing they really, really teach you is that learning is boring. And it wasn't until years after school I discovered I like to learn. There's a lot I love to learn about. I am a naturally curious person, and I've been researching and learning ever since. But school trained me to not be curious and to not research. And I was suspicious of public schools 20 years ago. And I'm looking at them today and going, these kids are going to come out dumber in a fence post, so confused, they will have to follow what they're told to do because they won't know any better and they won't figure it out on their own. So any Christian parent needs to know that Christian children don't belong in public schools. I want the next generation to look at Christians and see a difference. I want them to look at our young men and see young men who are manly, who are masculine. And I want them to look at our young women and see women who are feminine. I want them to see men who treat women like women and women who treat men like men. And no, I'm not talking about, hey, little woman, you might want to get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. That's not what being a man is. I know exactly what being a man is. It's about laying your life down for the good of your family. Your needs come last. You work and you look after your family first, and their needs come first. And if there's not enough money, too bad. You just work a little harder. And women are to be treated with courtesy, with respect. We're to open the doors for them, treat them with love and kindness and compassion. And women, there is nothing wrong with being a woman. That's how God ordained a marriage to work, for a man to marry a woman, not for two different genders who act very similar to cohabitate. Women should have no problem at all with being a woman, and men should have no problem at all with being a man. And I know, unfortunately, in our society, most men don't act like men. They act like overgrown children. I know that. And I would like for a future generation to be able to look at the Christian church and see that, yes, there is a difference. They have men and women. We have 50 Shades of Gray. That's the game plan. That's the goal. Let's show them that we're not the same as them. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. God bless you.